Welcome to your Fantasy Fulfilled. I'm your host, Latasha Miles, aka Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess, back with you again for week number 4. Now, last week there were some technical difficulties. I live near the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and you all are very familiar with the situations going on in that area. And it was just a very emotional time last week, and I'm sending my most sincere prayers, thoughts, and love out to the families, the citizens, and the residents. It was so emotional to the point to where I even had to escape to Atlanta and absorb some of that energy, some of the fun activities down here. And there's another reason why I'm in Atlanta, but I'll get to that at the end of the video. So as a result, I just took a week off, but now I'm back like Le'Veon Bell for your week number 4 fantasy picks. Indeed, Bell is back, and the Steelers really could use some Saved by the Bell action as we saw a third consecutive week, impressive week that is, from the rookie Carson Wentz as he helped trounce the Steelers and keep the Eagles undefeated, and a second straight remarkable week from former Eagles running back DeMarco Murray, now with the Titans. Rounding out the top players for week number 3 were Marvin Jones, Terrell Pryor, and if you had T.Y. Hilton, he had you checked in like the notable franchise of hotels. For your IDP leagues, individual defensive players it was David Amerson, Paul Posluszny, and Luke Kuechly did you a solid. Now things get interesting for week number 4. Yes, with Bell coming back as I previously mentioned, and what that will do to D'Angelo Williams, who has been tremendous during Bell's suspension, but also because the bye weeks begin. Now we saw week number 4 kick off Thursday night with the Bengals and the Dolphins in their color rush uniforms. They had a lot of people saying, "What are those?" Personally, the uniforms were kind of dope. I mean, the Dolphin ones made me want to have one of those throwback push-up pops, in the sherbet flavor. And if Cincy would have added the white helmets instead, then they would have been slicker. But you know who was off to a slick start in that game? That's the incomparable AJ Green. And if you have him on your fantasy football team, and I know you started him, then congratulations to you. You are the real MVP. We saw a heavy dose of the standout receiver, and we'll also continue that trend in week 4 by seeing a heavy dose of Drew Brees as he returns to his stomping grounds in San Diego, and I expect for Phillip Rivers to counterattack. We'll also see their counterparts at the wide receiver and tight end positions have stellar numbers as well. But what we won't see in week 4 is the Philadelphia Eagles or the Green Bay Packers, as they both have a bye week this weekend. Now, I'm sure some of you are concerned because you have players from these teams on your fantasy squad. But hey, have no fear. Joan Madden is here. And I got you covered like a blanket. And I'm going to give you guys some adjustments to make, all right? If you do have Wentz or A-Rod as your signal callers, go after Trevor Siemian from the Broncos. The first games of the season, it has been all about C.J. Anderson and their stout defense that show no signs of a Super Bowl hangover. But last week, we saw Trevor Siemian come out of nowhere on the road against a stingy secondary in Cincinnati, and he completed 66% of his passes, threw for more than 300 yards, and he spread the ball around like butter on bread, honey. And you can expect much of the same this week as he goes against Tampa, because Tampa has allowed at least 2 touchdowns in each of the games this season, and they are allowing the 4th most fantasy points to opposing receivers. And Siemian is still available in several leagues. The trend will most likely continue, and since the pep talk the receivers had about wanting Siemian to come away from such a simplified offense, Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas will come away with a high level of play, backing Siemian up, as last week's production are roles that they were demanding to have. Another sought-out quarterback for your sleeper picks, and he is available, is Brian Hoyer, as Chicago plays home against the Lions. Now, there were times in Houston where Hoyer looked Hoyerable, and I'll give you that. But his opponent this week has allowed at least 2 passing touchdowns each game this season. He also began to establish some rapport with Kevin White despite a losing effort against Dallas last week. Also, Alshon Jeffrey is as close to 100% this week as he has been all year, with nagging hamstring issues and more recently with his knee. He set an impressive streak against Detroit's secondary, And I'm sure he's been getting in Hoyer's ear and reminding him of such and demanding that he keeps that streak alive. Now, as for the running backs, this is for the most part a tough week at this position. There's lots of injuries, and most of the backups are very inexperienced rather than your veterans and workhorses with these matchups. For instance, Matt Forte against Seattle. Also in that game, Christian Michael against the Jets. Spencer Ware against a Steelers defense who was embarrassed last week. And Coleman and Freeman against a tough Panthers team. Another team who was embarrassed but at home. And they're trying to avenge what they went through a week ago as Minnesota visited them. Now, I'm not saying to necessarily bench these guys, but I do have some better solutions for you. I turn my attention specifically to the 49ers and Cowboys games and both opposing running backs in this matchup, Carlos Hyde and Ezekiel Crop Top Elliott. Other than his week number 2 blunder in Carolina, Carlos put up 4 touchdowns against the Rams and the Seahawks. Dallas has been pretty good at stopping the run for the first few games of the season, but Chicago wasn't that effective on offense at all, and Eli preferred to pass. Also, with Chip Kelly coming from spending 3 seasons in Philly, he faced that Dallas defense at least 6 times, and he knows what to expect. So another advantage for Carlos, and this has by far been his most favorable matchup, so don't hide him this week. Now, as for Elliott, my boo, Dez Bryant, is out for at least the next 3 weeks, but hey, I ain't tripping though. We needed some quality time together, and I need to nurse him back to health. No, but seriously, in his absence, Dallas, you definitely need to run the ball more anyway. Plus, Crop Top Elliott is going against a 49ers defense that still isn't and will never be the same minus Patrick Willis, Chris Borland, and Justin Smith. Also, actually, that's pretty much gonna do it. I just really want and really do think that we'll see a competitive battle between the former Ohio State standout running backs. And I think that they'll have their own internal conflict and one will try to outdo the other. So yeah, I'm expecting both guys to have big numbers in this game. So on to wide receivers and tight ends. Now, I advised you to pick up Will Fuller from the Texans during week 2, and he had a solid performance. I didn't post a video last week, and he didn't post a performance last week in that terrible outcome against the Patriots. But with 10 days of preparation, I expect him to bounce back against the Titans, primarily because Tennessee has allowed a 100-yard receiver in each game so far this season, and they've also given up touchdowns in those games. Now, Fuller will continue that for a 4th consecutive week. Back to the Detroit and Chicago game. I'm going to throw a curveball out at you here and expect to see a treasured performance from the Golden Tate. Now, I know what you're thinking. Joan Madden, Marvin Jones has become a number 1 receiver, and Anquan Bolden is emerging as a 2nd receiver and taking some touches away from Tate. But again, I'm picking some receivers for you, some sleepers, as we begin the bye weeks for this season. And also because he will be available in this contest against the Bears, provides to him the best matchup to elevate, and he'll get this favor twice this season. After all, Matt Stafford, although not always accurate, he is definitely a gunslinger and will spread the ball around. And the Bears are without 3 starters in their secondary, so thank me later. For tight end, especially if you have Zach Ertz, Richard Rodgers, or just for general purposes to prepare for future bye weeks, then turn to Dennis Pitterbread. Yes, Dennis Pitterbread, because he will give you a toasty performance. Now, I know that there has been some apprehension going in with Pitta as he's coming back to this season, but he has resurged. Dennis leads in receptions and receiving yards for the Ravens, and I expect him to deliver a menacing performance to the Raiders this weekend. See what I did there? Yes, I know that the Raiders secondary was stellar last week, but they also give up the 7th most points in the leagues to tight ends, and history has shown that West Coast teams traveling to the East to play at 1 o'clock have an underwhelming record. So Oakland might be somewhat sluggish with jet lag or just mentally and physically thinking that they're playing at 10 a.m. today. Now, for those IDP leagues, again, that's individual defensive players. I rarely discuss those players, but this week is special. Now, I know that the Texans aren't on a bye week, but unfortunately we had to say bye to J.J. Watt this week as he had a surgery and is out for the season. So I even got you covered on some deep sleepers of who to go get some help from so that they can serve as a band-aid for you with the unfortunate departure of the electrifying reigning defensive player of the year. So staying in Houston, look for inside linebacker Bernardrick McKinney. Jadeveon Clowney is sure to face double teams now with no Watts, and with McKinney's improvement these past couple of seasons, he's sure to make some stops in the second level of defense. He's been the bright spot for the Texans, even in their losses, especially against New England 10 days ago. He's the liaison with the communication from defensive coordinator Romeo Crennel, and he just had a baby in August. Congratulations to you, by the way. So I expect that he will continue to play inspired football with his offspring looking on. Also, look for Danielle Hunter from the Vikings. Now, I'm not going to necessarily call them the second coming of the Purple People Eaters, but they arguably have the best defense in the league. I mean, after all, they sacked Cam Newton 8 times in last Sunday's road win. And Hunter had a big part in that success and even spearheaded that safety that started Minnesota's 22 unanswered points run. He also has 13 tackles, a forced fumble, and returned it for a touchdown and averages a sack per game. This is the color purple member you want on your fantasy team. Fresh off of a huge road win against New Orleans in Monday night's game, Ricky Deion Jones is someone you might want to take a look at as well. He's been a huge upgrade for the surprising 2-1 Falcons at the linebacker position, stepping in at the starting role, and he has a total of 25 tackles. And even though he was deemed as undersized coming into this year's drafts, he's extremely athletic and speedy, and has been exceptional and will continue to excel as he faces 3 remaining quarterbacks in this division at least 5 more times, and they all like to throw the ball, including Cam Newton, and I'm actually about to catch that game here in Atlanta between the Panthers and the Falcons. As a matter of fact, Jones intercepted a Drew Brees pass in that game Monday night and returned it for a 90-yard touchdown. Oh yeah, and he just landed himself the Defensive Rookie of the Month honors for September. So hello October, and we all are very familiar with October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So shout outs and much love and support to all the survivors. And remember that early detection is important, and you'll get several reminders throughout the month. Definitely go out and get tested. So toodles to you for now. And thanks again so much for tuning in. That's going to do it for this installment of your Fantasy Fulfilled, right here with your girl, Latasha Miles, a.k.a. Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess. Thank you again so much for tuning in to me on SheSPN, the network. Enjoy week 4, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you next time, and I'm out. What's going on, good people? It's your girl again, Latasha Miles, a.k.a. Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at she_SPN and at Facebook at Latasha Joan Madden Miles. And subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is SheSPN the Network. Hey, I'm kind of a big deal. You know, I'm a little bit cute, got some beauty, got some brains. That way on that channel, you'll be able to see the interviews that I've done, some of the famous people that I worked with, the projects I worked on, things of that nature. And don't forget to log on to CreateSpace.com and Amazon.com and get your copies of my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, the ultimate survival guide for relationships and households during football season. I appreciate your support, and hey, I gotta run. They're over here calling me on the other line. I gotta manage another fantasy football league. I'm out.
Gon' kick it off then. Whoa. Gon' kick it off then. It ain't a game, kick it off then. Whoa. So gon' kick it off.